one thing that we always say is don't make this work your God. You have to have other things that inspire you and uplift you, because if you make this work your God, you're going to put so much of your self-worth into it, and you're not going to get the best result creatively from that.
With social media and everything these days, everybody wants to be the next superstar and amazing production company and everything else instantly. And the reality is it takes time. I mean, we started in 2011. And if you ask me today, we've advanced a lot from when we started, but I wouldn't say we've made it. And I think this can be said for a lot of production companies that I know that are similar, that it seems like they're blowing up, but in reality, they've been doing it for a long time. And you're just now seeing the results of those years of hard effort and work.
Welcome to the Storia podcast. So I've got RC and Molly with Storia Productions, and so good to have you guys on the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
it's going to be here.
Awesome. So I wanted to start off the podcast by just getting to know you guys more for my own curiosity and then obviously the audience. But I wanted to know how you guys started. Maybe even a little bit how you guys met, because this is like a couple team here, husband and wife, you know?
Partners and partners.
Yeah. And so how do you make that work is pretty interesting. Maybe we'll get to that in a little bit further down. But I wanted to know from you, RC, how did you get into video production and how did Storia start?
Absolutely. And I'll skip through and give you the summary version because there's a lot of elements to it. But originally from Colorado, I went to Boulder here, Sco Buffs, and kind of went on a whirlwind journey just to find myself, quote unquote. And I ended up in France. Mm-hmm. I was living with a roommate, and they had an old DV camera and Avid on the computer, and they were like, hey, we need to do some promotional stuff. You guys are creative people. Can you shoot some stuff for the place we were working? We were working in a vacation center, and so we're like, sure, why not? And so I self-taught Avid, which I know very, very little, just a tiny bit, enough to be dangerous.
Yeah. Avid's a high-level stuff, man. People jump in Premiere before Avid.
Together. That's about the extent of it.
Yeah.
Didn't know about interlacing.
Yeah.
Figured that out now.
Yeah.
So we just started doing stuff, and it became a passion and something that I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. And I've always enjoyed photography and creative elements. And this was fun because we had just a huge canvas there. They didn't really have a lot of guidelines. We could kind of do what we wanted. There was a whole workshop in the basement. So we're like, let's build a cable cam. And so we started messing around, but it kind of piqued the interest.
Yeah.
And so from there, I left there, and my brother and I started Storia in North Carolina. And the main reason for North Carolina is I didn't want to come back to Colorado. He was already in Colorado. He was already in North Carolina and had lots of connections. And so like, this makes total sense. And so we dove right into it, and wisely or naively, I don't know to this day what was right. We're like, let's just start a production company with no experience and no knowledge.
No schooling,
and just go for it. Yeah. And
what year was this?
This was 2011.
Okay, so getting in the game early.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we were really fortunate that we met a couple of really good friends that gave us a huge leg up and a huge start. That got us on sets as PAs, and
that's so important.
And actually, now one of my close friends, or our close friends, I was PA on his shoots, and now he's DPing for us. So it's just fun to like be able to keep the cycle going and supporting. But they got us on set. We got a lot of experience, and we'll get to it in a little bit. But that's actually how I met Molly. And those were just kind of the formative years of learning and growing. And I think, now business is good and stuff. But in that day, my brother and I had no money. We shared one bed. Like, we would take turns sleeping on the floor. One would sleep on an air mattress on the floor. One would take the bed. We scraped together enough to buy gear. But other than that, and I still remember the monthly maintenance fee on the bank account, if you did one debit card transaction, they would waive the monthly maintenance fee. So we would walk across the street to Staples and buy $1 box of paper clips just to get the credit to not have to pay the monthly maintenance fee. So not a glamorous start, but really like forced us to dig in and learn and kind of grow our skills quickly. And then from there, it just kind of evolved. And then meeting Molly is when it really, really took off.
That's what she just 10x the business.
She just 10x. We were just bros, flat brim bros.
I opened your Excel spreadsheet that you're building budgets in. I was like, we're gonna change some things.
Just to change.
So Molly, tell me your your integration with the business after you guys meet, you get married. How were you helping Storia?
Well, I'll premise by saying I worked for Storia for 9 months before anything romantic.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I actually, by the time it had become romantic, when I actually told RC that I had feelings for him, I had been so diplomatic between the brothers that he actually thought I was going to say I had feelings for his brother, for the other founder of the company, because I had tried to be very professional and even.
But you went with the better looking one?
My brother has more hair.
I went with the older one.
But,
Jeff does have more hair. Yeah.
more dad jokes, so it evens.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Cancel that.
No, I always joke it's hard to work with passionate people. They become attractive over time. So, but it's such a most days it's such a huge gift to be able to work together.
Yeah.
But no, it was a business decision. I really I think I was a freelance producer at that time, and I was working with lots of different production companies. But I think the thing that really stood out to me when it came to Storia was there was a moral value system that was really a pillar that they weren't even flexing, but it would just permeated into every business decision that they made and every client interaction they had. And I really respected that. And, especially with production companies today, like you have a lot of power when it comes to how you spend a client's budget and how to be a good steward of that. And it was really nice as a producer to come in and know that doing the right thing was always the right decision, whether it benefited the production company or not.
Yeah.
And so I think that was, and the quality of work, it was just really fun to all get jazzed about an end product together and be really excited about what we're creating, what we're producing.
Together.
So
having a team. Tell me about those business code of ethics, those values that you lead with, because that really is important. And a lot of times people aren't thinking of that up front. What are some of those that stand out for both of you that you really try to stay true to?
Nothing is
the first
one of them. We built out like our top 8 pillars when we started, and I can't remember if it was number 2 or 3, but it was don't be a douche. But
don't be a douchebag. We say D-bag.
I say that
now.
jokingly, but it's true. Like, I mean, I think our industry, there's so much collaboration, everything else, but it also has a propensity to screw each other over to get ahead and things like that. And that was one thing we wanted to start with right away. It's like, no, we're going to do it honorably. We're going to pay people on time. We're going to be responsible to our clients. And, and that's going to be
stand in the gap for our crew.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like there's that, but there's also a little bit of a pretentious attitude. So there's like
in this industry,
right, just any
about
artist,
it all the time.
The grandiosity of hey, look at the projects I've done, and that's like literally that's how you get hired is look at what I've done, right? But then I feel like there's a little bit of an attitude where sometimes like the higher level people, whatever level you're at, those that are higher above you would have a hard time sort of like taking you under their wing because they're blazing trails and off to their career path. But it sometimes feels like, well, I've been here, done that. I've been nominated for Emmys. I've, worked with this individual, or this is the protocol or the method. Is there anything that you'd like to speak to about that attitude?
I'm terrible at self-promotion. So
we are. We both kind of are. We always joke about why this industry has an ego associated with it anyway. We're not saving lives. No one needs to be like kissing babies like politicians do, So it's always interesting that it even has an ego. But I think in the conversations we've had over the years, I think it's probably because this is a form of art and it's subjective. And so we're spending so much time and I mean, that's valuable time that we're spending away from our families, away from our children. A lot of times we're on the road. And so we're putting everything we have into this thing, and then you release it to the masses. And it's really unclear as to whether it's successful or not, versus like RC does woodworking on the side. Another thing that I didn't know, he had this like
he's got a man of many talents.
He is. It just gets better and better.
Speaks French. He does. He's everything.
Woodworking, all the things.
I hit the jackpot, but we talk a lot about with his woodworking. He knows if his joints have lined up perfectly. He knows if he's done a good job. Where with video production and photography and all these other art forms, like it's pretty subjective as to whether you've hit the mark. Maybe it's something that you love and it didn't get the views that you were hoping for, or it didn't attract the attention of that client, or maybe the client doesn't like it, even though you felt like you delivered. So I think probably a lot of it comes down to insecurities.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I get it. Yeah, definitely. When you're trying to make art, that is probably the most emotional and vulnerable place you can be. And we're happening to make it an industry.
We're monetizing it.
We're monetizing art, and it's tricky. It's like, is that doesn't necessarily from a logical standpoint produce the best art, but there is a happy medium, and that's kind of where we find ourselves. And there's times where we pursue our passion and then reel it back for a little bit more monetization of like, okay, let's structure this in a business where we can provide, solve problems, add value to other customers and clients. You guys tell me, I'm interested in this. What is we talked a little bit about like ethos or your ethics and things like that, but what is like your mission? Like, what do you want to accomplish with your company, with your clients and customers? What's the overall dream goal for you guys?
Every year we do strategic planning sessions and we come up with our mantra for the year. So from a year standpoint, this year's mantra is be a good steward. And so it's being a good steward with everything we've been given, everything that, whatever successes we've had, being a good steward of our client's budget, being a good steward of the freelance crew that we support, of our staff. Big picture. RC's more the visionary between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I'm a really good executor.
It's a great team, though.
It's a great team. Yeah, it balances really well. When I first started, I actually wanted to be an actor, and that was mostly because I saw Pirates of the Caribbean and wanted to learn to sword fight, hang out with Keira Knightley, and just be on boats
those are
all
all
day.
great reasons.
I think Keira Knightley
all
factored
like
in
understandable
time.
reasons.
Yeah.
But when we first started the company, obviously the idea was to make the most amazing looking, cool stuff, and I think that's evolved. That's still very much like core of what we do. Always want to make.
Can I say what your like number one goal was that year?
What?
Shoot a helicopter from a helicopter.
Oh yeah, I was on the dream board. This was Art of Flight had come out, the snowboard film, and it was like, okay, let's film a helicopter from a helicopter.
Yeah.
Not just I filmed out of a helicopter,
Right.
but never a helicopter from a helicopter. One day.
Yeah.
It's changed.
If that stays on the list. But I think as it's evolved and the business has grown and stuff, I think to tack off of what Molly said about being good stewards, I think it's less about producing the most amazing, mind-blowing work. That's still very much core of what we do and everything that we do, just trying to make really good work. But it's also trying to augment the community and support and help grow it and help the new up-and-comers and help on the business side of it and with incentives and anything that we can to help grow the industry and give it back so that we all rise together, all ships rise. And
Yeah, I think that's
kind of become more of the central passion.
Yeah. What do you feel like is the bread and butter, like the niche that you guys kind of follow after at La Storia?
From a client standpoint?
Yeah, and the content, like the deliverables, the end of the day, like what you're delivering. It could be what you love, but also what you're really good at. Like what clients are coming to you for exactly?
I think they're coming to us for clever commercials right now.
Clever commercials. Yeah.
They might have a little nugget of an idea, and then it's so fun from an executor standpoint to sit back and listen to the creative conversations that our team has with clients and just hear how they're able to riff off of those initial ideas.
Yeah.
And not in a self-serving way of like, it'd be really cool to have a techno crane on this, but in a way of like, what it sounds like you're saying is this. So what if we did this? And the clients are just like so excited. And it's just, that's so fun.
Are you dealing with the client directly or an agency?
We do both.
Both, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what a call like that, we're jumping a little bit on the technical side of things, but like past maybe the discovery call, but like the ideation call or whatever you call it. Maybe talk a little bit about your process, like from them reaching out from a discovery call, then what happens after that?
I mean, a lot of the clients we've worked with for a long time, and actually a lot of them we call close friends these days. But
that's great.
So a lot of
them
times
stay
it's
at
like
our house when they come to town for shoots. They
so
like
good.
prefer to stay with us.
process-wise, a lot of our stuff these days comes via text. It's like, hey, we got this thing. Like,
that's awesome. So you have a great client relationship, like
a good client relationship. With a lot of our.
I'm actually convinced there's like a price point cutoff. Like under a certain price point is email. Above a certain price point is text. It's true. It really is. Like certain tiers of production, like where we really liked being at and where we shine, it's all via text.
Yeah.
And then you send the email afterwards to specify what's going to happen. But it's all done text right now.
So probably if they've been working with you for a while, they're used to your process. And I'm sure you guys feel a little bit more comfortable. Like you can sort of relax in the creative sandbox, if you will, if that makes sense. Like I feel that sometimes there's a bit of a stress if it's a new client, like where to go. How do you deal with new clients? Do you feel that stress, or it's like, hey, we just try to be friends with them again?
Yeah. We definitely used to.
I mean, if it's a client we've really wanted to work with, then there's a little bit more pressure.
Stakes.
But even in the initial creative process, and this is one thing I'll say just on a bigger level for the whole industry, is obviously we all want to make the coolest stuff and everything else. But there is an aspect where you are being a steward for your client of what's best for them on that project, and especially speaking in the commercial sense. And just so that's one of the first things we do. Usually myself and Steve and our team, who's head of creative, we sit down and we really look at the customer and like who's their audience, what's going to be beneficial to them, and we try and plus it up to make it creative and interesting, but really in a way that's good for them too, because we can all get lost and let's do the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't need the coolest thing. Sometimes it just needs to check the box and get it done, and sometimes it does need to be a cool thing, and that's part of the relationship too. And is we've built it with a lot of clients. Being like, I hear what you're saying, but what if we did this just a little bit better, and just nudging them a little bit, or like, we hear what you're saying from a creative idea, but we think what would really accomplish this is this. And that takes time and it takes trust. So with new clients, it's finding that balance of like, how much can we push? How much do we need to push? And it's a mix with new clients. Sometimes they come to us with ideas, which are awesome, and we've had some of those where we're like, this is great, we don't need to do a whole lot with that. And sometimes they come to us with ideas, we're like, this is a great start, let's see what we can do with this. And so it's all dependent.
And you have to remember too, sometimes for clients, like this is the most creative thing they get to do for the whole year.
They put a lot of heart into it.
They're so excited to do this.
Yeah, it's the fun part of it.
Can I say one thing on it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I did, though, coming from all the different production companies I've worked with and all the different pitch sessions I've been a part of and stuff, I came from a background where I felt like the creative team really had to like put on this show during pitch sessions of being like, this is amazing and this concept is going to be so incredible, whether they felt like it or not. There was almost a disingenuine like show and pony. What's that analogy?
Show pony show. I don't know.
What is it? Show and pony show. Horse and pony show. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Hopefully somebody else knows.
I felt like there was this need to put on a show to make the client feel like you were going to be this creative godsend to them. And it's disingenuous because a lot of times on the elevator ride up, the creative team didn't feel that way. And so it was just to win the job or sell the job. And I think we've gotten to a point over the past couple of years, which has really been like through RC and Steve and our creative team, of like, we're just going to be who we are. And if they don't vibe with us on that call, they're sure as heck not going to vibe with us throughout the process of this project. So if you can remove the side of like, I need this client because I have to pay my rent or my mortgage this month, and you can remove that fear from it. And honestly, just be yourself. That serves you so much better in the long haul of a creative pitch like that, where you're trying to win the business, but it's also you're auditioning a partnership to see if you also like working with that client.
Yeah.
And if you're not vibing, learn that early on to save you the pain of having to go through that project together.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Now
you mentioned stewardship, and I think this is an important part, and you kind of already talked about this a little bit, but the balance between the value you're bringing the client and perhaps that sandbox of creativity of like what you get to do, what you get to play with. How do you, it's not like, I don't think it's necessarily you're pulling against those two things, but what do you mean when you say stewardship and how do you bring more value to a client without getting carried away with your big ideas?
That's a great question. I mean, at least in the creative phase of it, I think a lot of it is probably the skill set of knowing when to say no or it's not worth it. And I think as creatives, we all struggle with that a little bit, but does this spot need a techno crane? Probably not, you know, like, and is that the wisest use of their budget for the spot? You know, there's going to be a couple talent. Let's put our money into really good talent, you know, and
because they fill the frame.
Exactly. And lose some of the
yeah.
other fringes or like it's a heartfelt concept.
Yeah.
Let's get the right person that's going to sell that feeling versus all the other cool film fluff. Let's focus on what is really necessary for that. And similar on that with being a steward, even in the idea process, a lot of times we'll go into a pitch and a lot of times with our clients, we'll present a few different ideas for a concept, like 3 different styles of execution. And a lot of times they'll be like, we like this bit, we like this bit, we like that bit. And I'm sure that's a lot for most, and you just have to let it go, and you're like, great, we're gonna like figure out how to combine these together into some new idea, and everybody wins. And
that said, a lot of clients do bite on your honorable mention ideas.
Yeah, a lot of times they're like, here's a crazy idea, I don't think this is right.
Yeah,
like,
that's
we like
awesome.
that. Like,
I love that.
It's
Honorable
like the
mention.
last.
Yeah.
It's like the last slide. We've joked about it actually being strategic because that is the concept that always gets chosen.
Yeah. I love
that one's always a challenging flex because we're like, oh,
why did we submit that one? It's so hard to pull off.
How to pull that one
I love that. It's such a creative way of saying like, hey, we're just, you know, it could work and it could not. Yeah, you're just throwing it out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the one question to add to what RC said is asking the question of who is this serving? This decision.
Yeah.
Who is this really serving? And just being true to yourself of like, is this for my real?
Yeah.
Is it really for my real, or is it, you know, or am I emotionally justifying it because?
Totally.
When it comes to pricing, do you feel like there's a tactic that you have acquired over time of pitching proposals and things like that? Do you price package? What's your approach to pricing?
I mean, we definitely have a templatized budgeting software that we use, and things like production insurance isn't something that we can adjust.
Fudge on,
But for the most part, we're really transparent with our clients on pricing. And if, for the most part, I'm the one these days that are selling the jobs and trying to find the right clients for us. And so anymore, if I'm really struggling with a client to get to a number that they're trying to hit, you know, a lot of them have like this threshold number that they have to be under. I will hop on a Google Meet call, I will screen share, and I will go line item by line item and walk them through the decision making. And because every once in a while, there's a chance that we've done something that is unnecessary or we've misunderstood something. And they're like, oh, that's not that important. I'm like, great, let's lose it.
Yeah.
You know, but to me, that puts, it's this partnership dynamic. And so then too, if we're feeling a little stressed or a little pressure on set, they know that they helped make that decision because they chose to nix something that would have been really nice to have.
Yeah.
Or if we go into overtime, which really doesn't happen for us, like we have
often.
a really amazing crew that help
Yeah.
prevent that from happening, but they have some skin in the game and they
Right.
understand some of our pain points going into it. And I have found doing it that way, clients are far less likely to slash things that I might if they weren't involved in that call.
Yeah, that transparency can be helpful.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
no, we
Like,
don't want to
this
do
is
that.
what
Let's
that's
not do that. Okay, let me go try and fight for it
Yeah.
and see if I can find it
At
somewhere
that
else.
point, do you kind of already have the job in the bag?
At that point, we are probably the front runner. If we're bidding it out against other folks, like we're trying to figure out how to make it work. We're their first choice.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Or it's a repeat, you know, client that they're like, look, this is all
Right.
this is all we have this quarter. How do we figure this
Okay.
out? And we do that a lot of times too, where they're just like, this is the pot of money. What can you do with this?
Now, Molly, this is really interesting because before we jumped on the mic, you talked about a little bit where the business was financially last year and then this year, or I can't remember exactly what you said, but talk me through that. You guys had a really low year. Was it 23 or 4?
23
23
was our worst year
and then
in the company's 14-year history.
No,
Wasn't it?
No.
Oh,
but maybe your margins were. Who knows? I don't know.
it was one of our.
It was one of our worst years. It was a bad year.
Okay, so tell me about that year, and then what changed in 24. I think this is really good for people to know because I'm sure they're listening and like, wow, these people just worked.
They've got it
They
together.
got in early. Yeah. They stuck with it. They, developed their SOPs, and here they are today. But you had a rough year, and a lot of people even now are just kind of struggling, and they don't have maybe as big of clients or as much data to pull from over a long period of time. But they're uber talented, and they're like, what do I do?
Totally.
But just from your standpoint, though, what happened? What was going on?
So 2024, last year, was our best year in the company's history. But for context, which is always king, 2023 was one of our worst years in the company's history. So when we started in 2024, RC and I had our strategic planning session and basically were like, we gotta change some things. And so we came up with a mantra, which was calculated persistence. And we were like, we are going to show up every day and do these same things every day. And for me, from a new business standpoint, that was, who can we help? What clients can we help? Not who can I sell to? Who can I help? Who can this team help? And what kind of work can we produce for them? And so every day I showed up and asked that question and just tried to find the right clients for us. And I had my, targets of, we need this many clients. I would like them to be in this price range. I'd like them to be this size. But we also that year did an audit of our entire, it was 13 years at that point, company history. And I looked at every project we'd ever taken on, and I put them through this criteria, which wasn't super scientific, but it was basically like, was the project good or bad? Would you work with them again? What was the contracted price and what was the actual? And then it was this an agency project? Was this a direct B2B client? Mm-hmm. And I took all of that data and we kind of used that as our Bible to see, like, where do we really shine? And it gave us a minimum engagement fee. So I knew when clients reached out for potential projects, I could politely, because I have the data to prove it, we don't really shine under this number.
Gotcha. That's perfect.
And it's not like it's just a hard no, but it's just a premise. We don't really shine under this.
That's a good way of
And I have the data to show it.
We don't shine under that.
Yeah. And a lot of times, it's funny about when you look at the data of something like this, and I think this is something that a lot of up-and-coming filmmakers will resonate with. When you look at the profit margins on those jobs that you are lower than the threshold that you should be taking on, profit margin's high. It's like 80 to 100%.
Yeah.
But it's because you're doing all the roles yourself. You don't have the budget to outsource to other professionals. So you're like wearing all the hats. You're like, suddenly I'm the director. Now I'm the editor. Now I'm now I'm like schlepping all the cases.
Some people, maybe that is what they want to do, or that
and if they shine at that,
exactly.
great.
But I think the phrasing there is, that's really good. Where we shine best is at this threshold and above. Yeah.
And that's something that I think, most production companies, we joke all the time about this as storytellers and filmmakers. Like, all of our websites look the same. All of our content looks the same. All of our taglines, we're a full service video production company, whether you're a one-man band or not. Like, everyone uses the we voice. And so I think trying to figure out what you really shine at is not only honest and genuine, it's your lifeblood in this industry. Because you're not going to be the right fit for every project that comes through the door. Just because it pays the bills, you won't shine at everything, and that's okay. But figure out, and if it's too emotional of a decision, audit yourself and actually get the data to understand, okay, for us, we really shine in this technology sector, food and beverage, and outdoor. Is that what we set out to do 14 years ago? No.
That's a wide sector,
That's
but you
like
had those
technology.
clients though.
But these are the projects that we're still getting really excited about.
Yeah.
And they're the projects that we
Want to
send
do,
the files to the clients. We're like happy with how that went.
Yeah.
We always joke, like, are these the projects we're going to want to show our grandkids about? And that's, I think,
That's good,
from an end product standpoint, like, that's the type of work we want to do.
Yeah. Do you go? You have something.
Oh, I was going to say, just
raise your hand, RC. Yes, you.
Benefit and con of being married to your producer. No, just to give some context to that too. Like 2024 was amazing. 2023 was one of our worst years, and part of that was because we do have some big technology clients, and that was coming off of COVID and recession, and some of them mid-project, we had some big projects, they switched their payment terms from net 60 to net 100
upon completion of the project.
Yeah, and so we were floating some of that. Crew didn't know, everybody got paid, but we were floating some of it. And so it goes back to the stewardship, we were standing in the gap, but because we stuck it out with those clients and stuff, when budgets return, they're like, hey, we want to like feed you as much as we can. And so that was part of that context too.
So that things just changed in 2024. So I think it's nice to know, I've been going through this idea of not everything is in your complete control. Things that are, take action with it. I love what did you call the persistent thing? What did you call that?
Calculated
persistent.
We've decided if you put the word calculated in front of anything, it just sounds so much better.
But imagine those things, like calculated, analyze, like walk through, systematize, and then persistence. Like we need a lot more of that, especially as creative artists. Like persistence is hard, or consistency. Yeah. But it's good to know that some of it isn't always under your control in terms of it could be your past clients that, maybe they're under the gun with certain things. They're changing their protocol and all of that. But then part of it too is under your control and you're going to do the best you can. And if you die trying, it's better than just making a bunch of excuses, right? Mm-hmm. And so I love the story of that. But in 2024, how did things just start changing? Was there a big project? Or was it really evident by that calculated persistence? What was it for you guys that shifted?
I think it was a little column A, little column B. I will say, like, on a broad thing, I think this is a note in general in our industry to new filmmakers, people who have been in it forever. I think we all get hung up on the creative and making amazing stuff, but truthfully, reliability is probably the most valuable asset that you can provide clients. And I think a lot of it was we got a lot of work in 2024 from people we'd done stuff with before, and they were just like, we need people we can trust. And we have so much budget and whatever. And so I think reliability is hugely important of, we're going to do what we say we're going to do. We're going to get it done. And sometimes it's like that, where they're like, our budget's got slashed. What can we do? And we're like, okay, let's be creative. Let's brainstorm about how we can make the most of that. And I think a lot of 2024 was that resurgence of all that reliability that we'd given to people when they were down and things were slashed. And then it finally came back around. So
I think the one thing that La Storia does really well is I think we really embody the word partnership, and that applies to our crew, our staff, our clients. But I think we always treat our clients in terms of a long-term partnership where we're just as inspired by the journey to get to the end product as we are along the way. And so the benefit of having long-term relationships with your clients is that you are able to embody this healthy relationship dynamic of support and challenge that you're not able to really do with one-off clients because you don't have that background yet. But when you've been able to work with someone for a long time, you can push them when it's appropriate, and you can support them when they're having hardships because you're growing together, and you can really look at it like that.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the clients we've had over the years, La Storia has a really high client retention rate.
That's good.
And so from a new business standpoint, I know if I can just get one project with them,
you can
they're
have
probably
going to
come back.
Yeah.
And it's not to be malicious. It's just any clients we take on, we take them on.
If you look at
we steward them.
Even from a business standpoint, it's hard for another client to just go shopping for, like, it takes a lot of effort. It could be fun for them. It depends what range you're at. I know I'm on a little bit of a lower scale, so just whether I'm working with a local business or something, it would be hard for them to go find another videographer, build that relationship. Exactly. So if you're pretty decent at keeping like a good deliverable, they don't really know anything else. And not that it's deceptive. It's just like now you forge that commitment. And if they're in business, you're in business.
Totally.
And if you're consistently making that offer, I think that's really good.
Can I have one more thing to it?
Yes, absolutely.
We have a business coach that we've had for years, but he said, I think it was during COVID, because we were trying to figure out, like everyone was, how to pivot. What do we do?
Right.
We do.
Our business is built on all of these people traveling to one location together and working in really close proximity. But he said, Molly, people do business with folks that they like, know, and trust. And so to this day, we really run our outward image through that filter. And so I think for folks that are trying to find new clients to work with or new brands to work with, people do business with those they like. So are you putting out an image that's likable? Are you being real? Are you being genuine? Are you being funny? Are you not taking yourself too seriously? No. If they don't know you, who on your LinkedIn tree can you see that you're connected to, and maybe they can help introduce you? And trust. Do you have the proven track record and the portfolio to show that you shine at this type of work?
Yeah.
And if you can check those 3 boxes, you have a really good shot at
at
least getting an intro.
Yeah. So, RC, did you have your hand up? Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, I was going to tack on to that. I think this business is so much about relationships. Yeah. And I think what I've learned over the years of doing this is don't discount any relationship, because
that's good.
You know, even like PAs could end up becoming creative directors at some point, and that relationship, they'll bring you in. Or a lot of our clients were friends from back when in North Carolina or whatever, and they moved here, they moved there, and they brought us along with them. So I think relationships are critically important and not to be overlooked.
I think this brings my mind naturally to the part in 2023 when you're sort of finding the ideal customer profile. It's like, hey, this is who we work with. How do you do your client acquisition or that new outreach, the marketing? Maybe not, the marketing is a broader statement, but that new client acquisition, not if they're seeking you first, but you're reaching out to them saying, hey, we'd love to work with you. What does that process look for you guys?
I don't send a message on LinkedIn.
Please no.
And I don't send cold messages. Yeah. I solely find a connection that we have in our network and say, hey, who do you know over at that brand? I see you're connected.
That's really good.
I think we'd be a really good fit for them. And here's why. And so that's one strategy. And then the other is if you do a good enough job, word of mouth does work.
Yeah.
We've never, as a marketing company who provides marketing solutions for our clients, have never done marketing ourselves.
Yeah.
It's that old
That's not true.
cobbler's son has no shoes. We've never paid for a Google ad before or anything like that.
We paid for Facebook ads once. And
what year was that?
My brother said the settings wrong, and so we paid a lot for advertising that we didn't mean to, but that's a story for another time.
I've been saying this for years.
That's the only time we've ever done it.
I'm lying.
Yeah.
That was a long time
ago. But to only do it one time, though, with your tenure is pretty great.
Yeah.
To do a Facebook ad. Like, a lot of people, that's like...
What if that's actually the trajectory of, like, all of Storia's success was that one Facebook ad in 2012?
Yeah.
Whatever you did.
I don't know all that much.
But
having those
the whole point of, like,
connections,
your customers become your salespeople. Yeah. When you do a good enough job, then it does make it a lot easier because when someone's like, oh, that video you guys just launched was so good. Who did that?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of our success has been the success that our clients have had and being good people and sharing us around.
That's true.
So, RC, what's it like working with your wife? How do you guys
depends on the moment you ask.
Should I leave?
No, it's absolutely, I mean, it's wonderful, like working with a significant other is it has wonderful moments and it has hard moments, just like any business partnership. I think we have learned a lot about ourselves. We've learned a lot about each other, and we've definitely relied on help from our business coach. And
he started as a marriage coach, and then he was like, I think I'm more of a business coach for you guys because it's all
all interconnected.
That's
and
funny.
I think like critically important is having lanes where we can each have control, because I think for a while we were trying to do everything and stepping over each other, and it wasn't working as well. And now we've really divided and conquered, and that gives us each a sense of agency and autonomy over certain aspects. Like I'm more in charge of creative, Molly's much more in charge of new business and that side of things, and that's been a really good dynamic because we can utilize each other's strengths and we can fill in on the weaknesses.
And you guys have 2 kids, 2 boys.
2 boys.
Young little ones.
Wild.
2. So your whole family unit working together. Molly, anything you want to add with that?
I mean, sometimes I think the lessons we learn in parenting are just as applicable to being entrepreneurs and having staff and understanding everyone's feelings and creating a good work culture. So
how's your day today?
and I think for our clients, it really serves them because there's probably a heck of a lot of time that we spend cooking dinner, talking about problems for them and troubleshooting that we don't bill them for. So it probably really benefits them.
Are you able to turn it off after work?
We've gotten better. We're not great.
We've tried.
Molly says no, never. Yeah.
I think I probably am worse about it.
Mm-hmm.
We started a new rule with our older son that we put the phones away the moment we get home till after dinner.
That's good.
Yeah. Just to like
from like 6 p.m. to through bedtime, like we're not available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Good.
I mean, it's something. I don't know if it's good. It's something.
I think it's good to have.
Can, like,
so
check the
you said
box.
your brother. What's his name?
Jeff.
And he's still with the company.
He's
still involved. He's still a partner. He's not as involved in the day to day, but he helps us on the big, the brand side of things, swag, all those kind of things.
Yeah. But I think it's good to have like a shared consciousness of, different ideas, because I know for myself, it's basically just kind of like a me operation that I'm the spearhead here. And that's for a lot of people, but it's hard to know when an idea is really good, when to run with it, when you should say yes or no to certain things. And it's good to just have that sounding board. A lot of times you do feel like you're this echo chamber of thoughts and ideas. I feel like probably the biggest thing that I struggle with is just like moving forward with one specific objective or vision. It takes a lot of time because it's a lot harder to move the train down the tracks. It's like, I got to get this started. I got to put the coal in the furnace here, and I got to, all the analogy of just like there's a lot of things that I have to do. So I have to be very careful with how I spend my time and energy. So I'm thinking about, okay, is this the wise decision to go here or there? But having another person, even if you're a small team, so this is the kind of shout out for those smaller companies, like having a best friend or just another business partner to just share ideas with.
Or a mentor.
Yeah, a mentor, things like that, I think is really good.
Yeah.
So tell me about your team. What's it like working at Storia? How important is your team to you guys?
We're still small,
Crucial.
just to premise it. But
I think most production companies are small in comparison to how another company functions.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, you're big to most of us that are in the filmmaking space, because most of us are just freelancers or like 1-2 man operations, But tell me about, why is it important to have such a good team? Maybe that's a better question.
I think there's lots of different reasons. One, just doing less is nice. Not having to work quite so much. I think it frees up brain space too to focus on one problem to solve instead of a plethora of problems. But I think it also allows for bigger thinking. Like Steve on our team, he's head of creative. He and I do a lot of ideation off of each other, and we like just sit down and we like bounce ideas and brainstorm. And then Chris on our team, who's head of post, he comes at it from a different perspective. He was at Crocs originally, so he's got this different look on things and really cool design aesthetic, and so he's really strong in that, whereas like design's not my thing. I'm more cinematography, and so like I think that culmination of everything coming together
having
really
different cogs in the wheel.
Totally.
Yeah,
of,
exactly.
like the spokes there to help each other.
We have a unique arrangement with our staff, and again, it's not something we set out to do, but it's how it's evolved. And so we basically, our staff are our department heads. So RC's head of operations, Rebecca on our team's head of production, Steve is head of creative, Chris is head of post. And so these same people touch every project that we take on in some capacity.
Are you ahead of?
I don't know, plugging in extension cords or something.
You just came up with
head
a
of
new
brand.
Head of brand, yeah. That
Which
makes
I
sense.
sought counsel from competing production companies on what that title should be, because I'm not a creative director.
Right.
And ironically enough, I was like, what does head of brand mean? And they were like, that's what's beautiful about it. Because the second I say head of new business, a client's going to feel like I'm trying to sell them on something.
Yeah.
Which is not my MO.
Yeah.
I'm not motivated or inspired by that.
Yeah.
I'm inspired by helping people. And so head of brand is super vague and it disarms people so I can have those conversations.
I was going to say too, I think with the team aspect, it allows us to provide high level consistency for our clients, in the sense that we still hire a tremendous amount of freelancers. Last year, I think we hired over 165 different contractors. And a lot of them we bring in as trusted partners and we give some of the reins to from a creative standpoint. That's like awesome. Our directors and our DPs were like, hey, we trust you guys. Like, here's our idea. This is what we sold. But if you want to plus it up, we're all for it. But we still stand in the gap to be that voice of reason, to make sure that the client's ideas are represented, the client is represented in everything. But then also like handing off some of it to other creatives to
I think
take
it's
and run with it.
Kind of a misconception when it comes to freelance crew that the biggest part of the project and the most important part of the project is the production day, is the shoot day or the filming period, because there's a ton on the front end and the back end that takes place to preserve those client relationships and keep them a partnership and keep them coming back. Yes, the production day is where the biggest line item in that budget is. But there's a lot that goes out on the front and the back end to keep everybody happy and to keep them coming back.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I don't know that crew always sees, because they just show up for the fun part and the pizza party.
Yeah. From your standpoint, what's the most important thing when it comes to building like a work culture and on set with all your contractors? Like, what are some of the characteristics that you feel like outlined, like this is really important to have if you're going to work on our team or with us as a partner? Like 3 or 4 of those.
I have many thoughts on this. I think up front, making sure that your budget is set up to have a fair and equitable exchange of services between your crew and yourself, you as a production company. So like at any point in time, if budget's changing or whatever, having that side conversation with your steady cam off like I had this week or whatever, to be like, hey, is this still fair and equitable for what we're asking you to do? Yeah. And just making sure everyone's aligned there. Yeah. All the way down to the very like basics of like, you can't control everything on set. There's going to be a ton of things that pop up and probably go wrong and add stress, but you can control the craft services and you can control the catering to make sure everyone's like fueled to do their best work. So just taking care of people, making sure that they feel, I mean, how many jobs have you done over the years where you like, as a freelancer, you showed up and they like didn't even have water for you?
The other thing I was going to add on in terms of staff and stuff, I think what's critically important, I mean, one, just a hustle mentality, but I don't mean hustle like I'm going to work all night on this project and kill myself over it. It's more, if something needs to get done, like one thing we push on our team is like, hey, like when we're closing out a set, grab a broom and help sweep. It's not the PA's responsibility. Jump in, like let's show leadership by action. Great. And then I think too, communication I think is so critically important. And I don't just mean like you can talk a lot or you share ideas. I think what I've learned over the years in business is something that's really valuable is a little bit of self-awareness of how you best receive communication and how you best convey communication. And that's something even with our team, just learning like maybe they like praise, maybe they don't like praise, maybe they like this, maybe they want agency and autonomy to do the thing, maybe they need guardrails and guidance. And I think just some more self-awareness of what you need and how you work best is critically important for working on a bigger team and with other people. And that goes for freelancers on set too.
Right. That's really good. Well, shifting a little bit to more of like a broader philosophical aspect is that we're on the Story Arc podcast. And so I love talking about storytelling. I love talking about movies and films and all of that. But from your guys' perspective and your passion and your talents, why is storytelling so important to culture at large, but then obviously with what you do in your trade and in your skill set? Why is storytelling so important?
Such a good question.
It's such a good question.
We should have prepared.
I know. What's the story?
If only we had named our company La Storia.
If only you had that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, there's the foundational elements of, and that's actually a little bit of the name of why we came up with La Storia, because we wanted something foreign, just because my brother and I both had lived overseas in Europe. But in Italian, La Storia has kind of a dual meaning. It's the word for story, but it also means history. There's something powerful with that. Just storytelling through time has been a way to convey
so important to
grand
culture.
ideas or even inspire people or everything else.
Nothing transcends like a good story.
Obviously, story's been pervasive since the beginning of time and conveying information. I think now so more than ever, obviously for a lot of filmmakers, I think AI is a huge topic of conversation. What's this going to look like? Is it going to put us out? But I think story will continue to push through in interesting ways, and I think that's where we'll see the uniqueness of what it is to be human. And I was thinking about this morning on the way that we were coming in, because we just did a narrative story project. We were working on the edit, and there was a guy that was sharing his story, and it was a really powerful story, and there were moments he was breaking down. And we left some of those pauses in there, and it was like, man, that's the moment of humanism. Like, that's so much is conveyed in that just is so powerful. And so I think, AI will change a lot of things, but I don't know that you can teach it that. And I think that's the power of story, is like conveying that human aspect.
Yeah. So I'm on something like I really am passionate about, like with the AI conversation and humans and everything. Like, this is kind of why I got into filmmaking. Was this is before AI, but more on the concept of just really believing in the power of story, what it can do. But it's not manipulative, persuasive, vices.
Totally.
But it is a tool. It is a technique. And I've done a lot of study, like, what is a story? And, this is called a story arc. And there's traditional, 3-act structure. And there's a lovely character arc here, and all of those things. But I think fundamentally, stories do embody the essence of humanity, what it means to be human. It splits us apart. Like, if you look at, I go down the rabbit hole of like, okay, ChatGPT, what are you kind of thing? Like, what makes you different than me? And that's an interesting concept, because they follow patterns, analytics, first principles, logic, reason, all these things. So why is that any different besides the flesh and blood than my human consciousness? And there's something about that I think we should explore more as filmmakers and as artists, as storytellers, is that fundamental difference, because it's there, but I don't think it's as clearly defined in culture quite yet. And people are just so, like, I love new technology. It's always cool if AI can do a job for me that makes it shorter than whatever I'm doing. But if it's replacing the essence of the beauty of storytelling, and the beauty of what makes us human, the resilience, the ambition, the drive, but also the dream, the imagination, like all that, the love and the kindness, like you don't see that with ChatGPT. It's not unkind, but the point is, it's like, what makes humans do the things they do? What drives them? Like, is it a quantum system of consciousness? What is it exactly? And I feel like the beauty, like, that's the essence of beauty. Beauty to me is it's conflict, it's friction, but it's juxtaposed with something that we form to be, I don't know, what we call poetic. Something that has this thread of I don't know, just beauty, right? So I'm kind of rambling a bit here, but I think a lot of this is what I think if we want to survive in the age of AI, you've got to adapt the new tools, so always stand out. But I think if you're in the filmmaking industry, you're probably lent more towards storytelling. You need to lean into that even more, and really find how to stand apart, I think. What do you, okay, so with all of that, my question is kind of like, how do brands buy into that? Because you talked about like what every brand says or filmmaking company says on their website, we're a full service video production company. We tell stories. We're good at storytelling, things like that.
That gets used a lot.
Let us tell yours.
Yeah, let's tell your story. And it's funny because they're probably not hearing that term a lot in their business. So I feel like it's still important, but how do we sort of garner a new sense of excitement with that? But yeah, so going back, the question is how can a video production company stand out with story? As cliche as it sounds, how do we stand out with story? How do we get brands to buy into that idea and package that as a product, even a campaign? Have you guys considered that even with the things that you're creating? You mentioned clever commercials. I can't remember if we were rolling or not during that time, but that's what you guys do. Or not all of what you do,
commercial
but
video production company, but we do docu-style things like that as well. But
any thoughts with that, like packaging the story and selling it to brands?
Yeah,
it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, because I think there's tons of branded narrative doc stuff these days, and the reality is, at least in the commercial side of it, if a brand's involved, they're going to want it in some way. I think there's few brands that have done it really well, like Yeti when they were first going, very little hint of the brand at all. And I think that's good storytelling, just telling these stories of people. And but I think even more of that is less showing of the brand and more showing of just the use and the people that use it, and that's the beauty in it. But I think trying to find the sweet spot, because it's, if there's money involved, there needs to be an outcome and there needs to be results. And so it's like finding that sweet spot. But I also think for us, one thing that we've tried to implement with our team is what we call Tinker Time. And it's just basically us going into the studio with a very loose idea and just messing around, trying some things,
find something,
seeing what works, or it's doing passion projects or things like that. Because I think that's a lot easier to sell and package up to show like, hey, this is what it could look like, than trying to talk somebody through that. Because when you're talking to them, they're like, this sounds great. And then you get into it, they're like, we'd really like to flip the label so you can see it when they're sitting there sharing their life story. And you're like,
it's definitely like any opportunity you have to show versus tell.
Yeah, I think
will serve you well.
I think that's a way that we can all, as filmmakers, continue to push story and convince people of it. And I truthfully think with AI and everything else, just kind of like when DSLRs came out, there's going to be a whole flood of mediocre stuff. And I don't say that to rip on anybody's content creation, but there's just going to be a whole flood of it. And I think we're all going to get to the point where we just crave real. Kind of like the resurgence of film, that died for a while, became all digital, and now it's coming back. And
that's the other way that you can use AI though now as filmmakers, and that's something that our head of creative said years ago, of actually plug into ChatGPT, give them the problem you're trying to solve, see how they would recommend doing it, and then do it the complete opposite, because that's what everyone else's feed is going to look like. Do something completely different than it's recommending.
Right now it's the speed up process. Like AI is sort of leverage efficiency, but if you're using it to draft your cold emails or your email campaigns, your social media strategy, everything's going to sound the same, because ChatGPT is pulling it from the database of all of human conversation. So to be different is essentially everyone's being the same. There's no originality when it comes to AI. I think people aren't really having those conversations when it comes to the tech space or even the art space. I'm not saying it's new and novel, but I'm saying it's really good for us as sort of the innovators of monetizing art. Like, we need to be talking about these things so we don't get bulldozed with the bureaucratic, AI agenda of like, you got to jump on board. Again, we love the tools that helps us shorten any time that we're going to spend with, editing or color grading. Like, if it can shorten those things, but it's still, you need to be in the driver's seat. all the time. You say, well, I'm doing the prompts, and I think, you can do the prompts to come up with something, but there's something about the muse, inspiration. Where do thoughts come from? I think is really an interesting, really deep philosophical conversation, as you could have a whole couple episodes on that.
Totally.
But that, to me, that's where I'm passionate about, is like trying to not hold on to, like, it's not a difference of holding on to the film age versus digital, because I feel like that at some point, I know the pros and cons of both. But this is something a little bit different in terms of like holding on or reminding ourselves of the essence of what makes us human, what drives us, what brings us together as a community. Communities are big, like, because now we're isolating more and more. What do we need each other for when we have a therapist or a friend chat bot, or something like that. And it's only propelling further, to VR and all of that. And I'm not like get on our picket signs and we should say no to it. And I know people, lean on that side of the fence, but I think it's not necessarily a time like, boy, you could really monetize some great things here on the AI front or the more human front, but it's more of staying afloat and also reminding ourselves in the greatest transformation in like human technology at this time in history to sort of remind ourselves what makes us us and stick with that and sort of make that the banner. I think everyone can do different, go off different mantras, but that's my mantra is to stick with that. I love like stories of human resilience. Like I was talking to Nate Dodge on the podcast and he was asking me a little bit my interest with, like, do you do outdoor brand stuff? And I'm like, to be honest, I feel like I would get either bored with just one specific thing. Like, I love the outdoors, but I also love, like, I did a ceramic documentary, like just people that have skilled craftsmen. I did a farm documentary. It's like, I love how the environment works and like how plants grow, and then I love people on the side of a mountain skiing. Like all of it is so interesting, but I think the common thread is humans, it's people and what they do, what compels them, what drives them, what brings them together. All of that is so interesting. And I just want to, make a living off of telling those kinds of stories,
That's true.
But
there's like a level of resilience that's required for any living creature, beyond just human. It's interspecies.
Yeah.
I mean, we joke, we try and limit screen time with our son, but nature documentaries can kind of permeate through. And you watch any nature documentary and it's just amazing the amount of resilience that any species has to endure. I think there's a Darwin quote that is something, I'll butcher it, but it's something like, it's not the strongest of the species that survive or the most intelligent, but the most willing to adapt.
Interesting, yeah.
That survive. It's that adapt or die. Yeah. And AI, at least to me, is just another area that we will continue adapting.
Yeah.
And finding where we shine in whatever this looks like 10 years from now.
Yeah. So if you could leave us with something, and that is, people are, other filmmakers are aspiring to get to the next level, whatever that may be. Maybe some of them are narrative filmmakers, documentary. But I think at the end of the day, people want to make a living and they may not have the highest, this is what I want to make per month, and it's just, millions of dollars and things like that. But they want to make a living with their passion. What advice would you give them if they're 1-2 years under their belt? They've got a small network of people. They've got a small portfolio. What character advice would you give them? And maybe even some practical things that come to mind to say, do this to go to the next level.
I do. Before I forget, I have two.
Okay, good.
One thing that we always say is don't make this work your God. You have to have other things that inspire you and uplift you, because if you make this work your God, you're going to put so much of your self-worth into it, and you're not going to get the best result creatively from that. So that's one. And then the other point, and we remind ourselves of this often, but when you're trying to grow, you're trying to progress, you're trying to do something, and it's not something that you'll visibly see the results from immediately. It's not an instant gratification moment like mowing the lawn. You can like clearly see if you've done a good job or you like are able to check the box. There's this analogy that our business coach gave us years ago, because we just felt like we were kind of treading water. We're like, we just don't feel like we're getting anywhere. And he was saying, if you are able to take growth and look at it from this perspective and like picture yourself going up a quantum of stairs, you may just feel like you're just spinning around in circles, but if you actually looked at it from this angle, you're moving up. Mm-hmm. And so you just haven't gotten to the landing where you can look over and be like, oh, shoot, I didn't realize we were up here. We've actually made progress. So just like be gentle with yourself, that growth isn't always linear. It's not always going to look like this. It may look like this as you're going, but just remember where you started and where you're heading, and just stay focused on that and use your calculated persistence to get there.
Calculated persistence.
Show up every day, do the same things.
That's
growth
so
is
good.
growth, but it may not look like it or feel like it that year.
That's really good.
Your turn.
My turn. I have a couple thoughts. One, first and foremost, kind of tacking off of that, like, don't make it your God. I think on that same note, like, it is a vocation at the end of the day. It is a career, and it's something that we're doing. But I think it can't be the only thing that defines you. I really enjoyed this podcast. It's with a sports psychologist, and he talks to high-level athletes, NFL players, everything else. And he asks
plug it. Those viewers might like that podcast too.
Michael Gervais is the podcast host, but it's really big. He asks these athletes, like, how do you define yourself? And if they say, oh, I'm an athlete, he's like, that's a problem. And the problem being that if you removed that, you have nothing to stand on of who you are. And I think as filmmakers, we do that too often. It's like, oh, I'm a filmmaker. But then if for some reason a little aspect of that gets pulled away, that's the only foundational element of who you are. And we're so much bigger than that. And that can pour out into the filmmaking, but it can't be our only identity. Mm-hmm. And I think along with that, tagging off Molly's too, I think just trust the process. I think with social media and everything these days, everybody wants to be the next superstar and amazing production company and everything else instantly. And the reality is it takes time. I mean, we started in 2011. And if you ask me today, we've advanced a lot from when we started, but I wouldn't say we've made it. Mm-hmm. And anyway, because the reality is the most unique part is the process. Yeah. And so just digging into the process, realizing it just takes time. And all of a sudden, and I think this can be said for a lot of production companies that I know that are similar, that it seems like they're blowing up, but in reality, they've been doing it for a long time. And you're just now seeing the results of those years of hard effort and work. And so the success will come. It might just not be on the time frame you think. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel too soon, because it might just take a little bit of extra time, and then all of a sudden you're there. So
and don't cut corners to get there.
Yeah, don't cut corners.
Yeah. It's no fast track. Huh?
Yeah, there is no fast track.
Yeah, that's so good. Like, and that's really unbelievably good. So that was so good for me. So to hear that, like the
hopefully it helps.
The identity aspect of it, that no fast track, the linear, curve. It doesn't work that way.
Would you have answered that question as what defines you as a filmmaker? Would you have answered that as I'm a filmmaker?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, probably without, if it's a trick question, then yes, I would have answered it as a filmmaker. But at the end of the day, do I define myself like that? I think it's good to just remind yourself that that's not. But if 90% of your conscious attention is given to your business and doing a craft and a trade, then you naturally make your identity that. Mm-hmm. But I think to think more broadly is not as well versed and coached in our culture. No. Because you're just hammering into, I want to do that, this is the objective, the goal, and so I've got to be this, and then it begins to be part of your identity.
And then you're attaching money to it. And then if you have a slower month, your value is decreasing. And now I'm a poor filmmaker because I can't I'm not able to make my bills or whatever it is that
the
month.
The mood swings of that.
Yeah, the extremes of this.
Tacking on that, like, as much as we say we don't care about it, we care about view count and all those things. And that's where if your identity is attached to solely to that, then if somebody doesn't like your story, if they don't like your video, if they don't like your movie or whatever, now it's just killed your identity, because that's everything that was attached. Where if that's a part of you but not all of you, they can't take that from you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have it even from an insecurity. I mean, this industry, like, we're all so insecure and just trying to play out that insecurity in the work that we create. But I think changing that narrative to, like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is a story that I want to tell, and if nobody likes it, it doesn't matter. Like, I need to tell it because it's coming from this deeper character.
Is a good reminder for me sometimes, where you're trying to work out all the nooks and crannies of making it just so for the client or get the right client, and to remind yourself, like, I remember saying this out loud to it was my sister-in-law at the time, and I said I know this is what I want to do with my life, because and again, that's not the full identity, but this is what I want to pursue as a passion. Because I would do it regardless of what other people thought about it. And that's a good sort of litmus test. And then it's just good to remind yourself after several years of building a company for yourself. It's like to go back to that first fruits, that first love of, like, why did I do this to begin with? But that's obviously, we're just talking about the craft, the trade of storytelling, filmmaking, and all of that. But, you know, you guys are husband and wife, father, mother, you have other identities as well, and then there's you as well. And you know, this isn't a sort of a psychology therapy podcast, but I think it's important.
Oh, I thought that's why we were here.
I think that's
I mean,
but yeah, I think that's really good. I probably could have a part 2 of the podcast where we talk about how to sort of separate your identity from just being an artist or a filmmaker, because that can sort of suck the wind out of your sails every day, if especially if you're just scrolling on social media and like, wow, these people are amazing. Like, who am I? You know, and trying to carve out your niche, you know. But I was talking to Brian Hollers. I think, yeah. And he's so good. And we were the phrase, the death of the ego kept coming up. And I really like that phrase, like, just to remind yourself that. I think another phrase of just not to take yourself too seriously. And I always thought, you know, well, hey, life, you only get one shot at life. You probably should take it seriously. But that's not what that phrase is applying to. It's just like, you know, hey, if you mess up, or if you are going into this, like a pitch meeting even, it's like, yeah, the stakes are high, but it's like, just loosen up a bit. It's like, who are you, you know? And it doesn't mean you're like the dust of the earth, you know, necessarily, but just remember, you're not above anything. You're just like, don't take yourself too seriously. I think that's been good for me to learn, is like, just kind of relax a bit, you know, take a chill pill.
Like, it's all just a big experiment anyway. And you just never know what's going to do well, what doesn't.
Yeah. We always throw around the quote too, like, good is good enough. And sometimes that's just, you know, a reminder of, like,
and I think that's really great for perfectionists to bring us down.
Yeah.
Because people will say good enough is the enemy of great. They say that, you know, and like what greatness is, but there's almost like a dichotomy, a dualism in your mind of, like, you got to think through things a little bit differently, not always binary, but, you know, good is good enough.
Is the pursuit of greatness hindering your progress from doing anything at all?
Exactly.
That's probably how.
And if it is, then maybe just settle with
it.
Your good is probably good enough.
Yeah.
Maybe not everyone's good, but yours is probably good enough.
Well, you guys are awesome. So thanks for coming in, taking the time to bring such truth bombs to our podcast.
Or something.
And,
we've learned them all ourselves. So hopefully we can share a little bit of wisdom.
Yeah. But thanks again for coming on, RC, Molly. You guys are world-class, special. So it was great to just get to know you, and then just take this time to tell us about your story. And we hope the best for Storia Productions.
Oh, man. Thanks for having us. It's been great.
We definitely have a lot of work to do still. We don't do everything right, but we try really hard. So
Awesome. Well, thanks again.